This is the No Strings Podcast with Rel Simon. What's up, y'all? So here we are. The shutdown is over. This is podcast episode 70 of the No Strings Podcast. I may be long, I may not be long. Haven't released a podcast in over a month. The month of October was a doozy, of course, for many Americans, including myself. The last time there was a shutdown, I did not have a podcast or this type of platform to opine on the situation. And here we are now, and this is what episode 70 is about. Of course, thank you for listening on whichever platform you're listening on. Podcast available on all platforms, Spotify for creators, and available on all platforms. TikTok at Rel Simon, Instagram, kicks on Canvas _artistry. Let's go. No wasting time at all. So, on this episode, I'm going to detail the length of the shutdown, what happened once the government reopens, and what to look for over the next few months. Because while there has been some relief, a lot of people getting their paychecks back, a lot of people going back to work, there is still some cause for concern because we may not be out of the weeds just yet. So if we rewind back to 2018 and 2019, that shutdown lasted 35 days. It was also during the presidency of Donald Trump. And let's fast forward now to October 1st, 2025. Most fiscal years, particularly in the government or in business, you have what's called a fiscal year. We know what a calendar year is. January 1st until December 31st, right? Whenever the clock strikes midnight, you have 11:59 on December 31st. And then the clock strikes midnight and you go into the new year. Boom, Happy New Year. You're going into a new calendar year. So for some companies or governments, particularly the federal government, the U.S. government, they have a fiscal year, which the last day is September 30th and the first day is October 1st. For a lot of organizations, that requires, or let's just stick with government, that just requires them to prepare to pass bills and forecast funding and budgets for the upcoming year regarding healthcare, education, school, salaries, whatever, you name it. So what happened is that there was no agreement by the members of the House and the Senate by the deadline of September 30th, by midnight, October 1st, to be authorized to spend or to be authorized to provide wages for those persons under the government. To provide funding for those nutrition programs and other subsidies. So again, it began on October 1st, 2025, and it went on day by day, week by week, apparently with no end in sight. And people were freaking out, have all right to be freaking out, not knowing where their next paycheck was coming from. Where we know the stats, 1 in 4 Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And so many people are just 1 or 2 missed paychecks away from it sort of derailing their momentum and making things very difficult. And so that's during the shutdown. You had people on furlough, government offices, government buildings, TSA, air traffic controllers, Those are the more famous examples, as well as publicly funded museums, the National Mall, all the Smithsonian museums, National Gallery of Art. Shout out to Joel and Chad. Everything was closed for that period of time. I think the National Zoo as well. So just straight dead zone in parts of here down in DC. And you go on and you go on and you go on, and with no end in sight, and it's the holiday, and people are starting to get nervous. Can I afford Thanksgiving dinner? What about Christmas? What's going on Black Friday? Until this past week, where things started to pick up steam, where some Democrats, 8 Democrats, that kind of, some people say they folded or gave in, however you want to call it. And there was some negotiations that started. And so there was a bill brought on the floor on November 12th, Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. Went to a majority vote between the House and the Senate, and they agreed. It was sent over to Donald Trump's desk, and Donald Trump signed it, effectively ending the shutdown. Now, what are some of the details included in that? So I'm reading an article from KCRA.com, where it says the House passed compromise bill Wednesday night after the Senate approved a package on Monday evening. 8 Democratic senators defied their party's leadership to support the legislation, dropping their key demand that the legislation extend the Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies that are set to lapse at year's end. As part of the deal, the Senate will vote on the enhanced subsidies next month. Notably, the agreement with Republicans does not guarantee the beefed up assistance will be extended. Here's what's in some things in the bill. Funding federal agencies. The bill provides funding for most federal agencies through January 30th. That means that if the two parties can't come to an agreement on another temporary spending measure or a package that funds agencies through the end of the fiscal year, which would be, again, September 30th, much of the federal government could shut down again in less than 3 months. That legislation, however, provides full-year funding for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the legislative branch, and military construction and veterans affairs. So those functions will continue even if an impasse reoccurs at Capitol Hill. Now, stop right there. Again, if the government shuts down after January 30th, Department of Agriculture, legislative branches, and military construction and veterans affairs will still receive their full funding, whereas a lot of government workers, TSA, air traffic controllers would essentially be in the same boat, or in the same boat as we were in the shutdown posture. Regarding food assistance, the legislation fully funds the food stamp program for the rest of the fiscal year, which ends September 30th. No longer called food stamps, is more commonly known as SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Those funds started to lapse November 1st, so about 2.5 weeks ago. And there were judges who blocked that order, and there were certain states that started to fund and provide individual funding for those persons in need. But this deal does replenish SNAP's contingency fund. It fully funds child nutrition programs, including free and reduced price school meals. $8.2 billion for the WIC food assistance program, which serves 7 million pregnant women, new moms, and young kids. That's a $603 million increase over the past fiscal year. The package provides $115 billion for discretionary veterans affairs, medical care, federal workers. The legislation also guarantees retroactive pay for the 1.4 million federal workers who were furloughed or work without pay. Many have missed 2 full paychecks as well as a partial one. And that, in essence, is pretty much it in a nutshell. So the takeaways of that: person should be getting their SNAP benefits, regards to pay, and that's one of the biggest things. I mean, of course, people need SNAP and need food, but pay is the biggest thing. There's persons who started to receive their back pay. I started to receive portions of mine, and even my colleagues. Then I even saw there in the news, Christy Nome handing out some checks for TSA workers, air traffic controllers. There are certain people who never called out on the job, were never placed on furlough. They're claiming those people to be exceptional, and they're doing $10,000 bonuses. So all seems to be right in the world. Now, again, there's still that vote that has to be done in December regarding healthcare tax credits. But all seems to be right. A lot of people can breathe, and I can admit it's a step in the right direction. It's a relief. But I would be lying in telling you that I do have some very staunch thoughts. Just things where been in this posture 6 years ago. 6 years is a lot of time, and opinions change. You get older, wiser. You start to learn and view things in a different light. And back then it was rah, what do we do? And there was a lot of support. Shout out to Jose Andres once again for being able to do a free meals program. And as well as for me personally, thank you to all the people that have given me support, checked on me. Thank you to all the persons at church. Thank you, Glenn and Tony Isaac, for what you have done for me. I appreciate that. And bless you both, two members of the church. And so, yeah. And of course, I did my little budget. I know for me personally, right? The credit card bill started racking up a little bit. I had to shift money around. I had my emergency fund, which was depleted. And again, I always stress the importance of emergency fund. All these type of podcast episodes and all these places, they talk about having an emergency fund and having a buffer, rainy day fund for this, not this exact thing when the government shuts down, but more so when you get laid off, when you get sick, incapacitated, and you can't work. In this instance, a lot of people were working, but just weren't receiving their funds. I think for me, that's where I get a little sour on it, because for me, the concept of the government essentially holding pay hostage. I mean, it's one thing where there's certain benefits and you have to vote on a package and vote on spending and whatnot. But for a lot of people that are working a living wage, those TSA workers working tirelessly, those air traffic controllers having to come into work and choosing, can you afford lunch or gas on this day, being able to go on and carry that out or think about that and balance that in your mind. I don't know, it just sits with me the wrong way, where it just feels like money's being held hostage and you work. You should be able to get your money on point, like right there on the spot. It's a system. I mean, a lot of people are going to be mad on both sides. The government is, people are always going to be Democrats for life, Republicans for life, and the different views and stances. It's just always going to be like that. It's always going to be two sides, and there's always going to be call for bipartisanship and unison. And I'm not a politics guy. For me, I'm just a money guy. And for me, I like to take care of my money. I like to spend my money as well, but I like to take care of my money. But I just couldn't at times shake the feeling of the funds being held hostage, in a sense. And, now it's just this sort of rebuilding phase, right? I did a little bit of Amazon shopping. Of course, it's like you get the money, hot hands, blow it, right? Who knows what anybody else done? Some people probably want to go crack a bottle and, want to go out to eat and, because it's been so long, it's 43 days. So that's a long time. People have the right to spend the money the way they want. But I think for a lot of people, it's definitely a wake up call where during that 43-day time, you may have been in a hibernation mode, in a scarcity mindset. And that's a mindset that you have to have if you want to be truly, truly wealthy. And so it's a weird vortex. If this was the spring, like April, May, June, that's almost like a period where, some people travel, but the spring is kind of like the dull month, season. If it was during the summer, everybody wants to be outside, go travel, go fly. The fall, kind of similar to the spring, right? But right now we're into the ending of fall and the beginning of winter. And the reason why I bring that up is, with this being recorded on November 15th, about 12, 13 days away, 11 to 13 days away from Thanksgiving and Black Friday and that entire weekend. So that's one holiday. We got Christmas coming up next month. We got New Year's, of course, in January. And then the possible deadline of January 30th. So it's only 2.5 months and I've been telling this to all the people I spoke with, all my coworkers, 2.5 months. You scramble now, you got your funds, get your Thanksgiving dinner over this next week and a half. Then you got to prep and get ready for your Christmas shopping. Well, get your Thanksgiving dinner, and then maybe you might be doing some Black Friday shopping. And maybe some of that Black Friday shopping will be buying for Christmas. But you got the month of December to buy for Christmas. Some people, you pop your bottle or pop your sparkling cider. You're doing your New Year. And from January 2nd to January 30th, are you in that hibernation mode? You're in that preparation mode for that next sort of doomsday. 2.5 months is not a lot of time at all. And granted, there's a lot of questions about the tax implications and everything. I can really just speak for myself where, granted, there's 2.5 months until January 30th, but there's 1.5 months until the end of the year. So for me, this derailed me a lot. My emergency fund is thrown out of whack. I definitely won't be able to meet or max out my Roth IRA this year. I will just see what I can be able to do, just hit my baselines. And I'll have to do some recalibration. I believe my first podcast episode this year, 2025, was recalibration because I had a different mindset. But some of these little hobbies and a little bit of travel, and, these wrestling cards and X, Y, and Z, and then boom, the shutdown happened, and I had to scramble and figure things out. And so, it's just a priority is the emergency fund, getting it up to where I would need to be. Anthony O'Neill says 1 month's salary should be in an emergency fund. So take your salary, divided by 12, and then that number you have in a calculator should be like a ballpark. Well, that's going to be my ballpark because I'm living by myself. But of course, 3 to 6 months of expenses, maybe 6 to 9 if you have a big family, right? That should be everyone's priority if you were affected by the shutdown. And even if you weren't affected, because this stuff affects the economy and there's a trickle down effect. Those long lines down in Houston waiting for a flight. If you don't have TSA pre-check or clear and everything like that, having to wait at the check-in counter, or having to wait, having to wait at the TSA line, just so chaotic. Even there's still some flights that are being delayed, even still, as I'm recording this. But it is emergency fund. The investments. I don't know. For me, it's got to be a focus for heading into the next year. Being able to do that, but I got to see what I can do and make it work. But again, for a lot of people, that's tight because gotta have a turkey dinner on the table. Gotta get the kids at least one Christmas gift. Gotta get each kid at least one. Gotta get the spouse one, or we can do something, right? We'll see. We'll see what, in terms of some of these financial numbers. We'll see what Black Friday looks like which historically, of course, Black Friday has just transformed into a week, more than just a simple day. And then, of course, with Cyber Monday. But we'll see what the figures are and the numbers are regarding that, and we'll see what the overall numbers are in terms of the holiday shopping season, because this is a very important time, one of the most lucrative times of the year for businesses to be making money. So now I felt like I was rambling on a bit with, I guess, a little bit of some rhyme, some reason. Also, thank you to Uncle Harvey for being able to give me some canned goods and look out for me a couple of weeks ago as well. I'm grateful that this is over for now. Right, but again, just 2.5 months. Just want people to just stay vigilant and just think about that. Just remember that it's 2.5 months before people will end up spiraling back down into this thing. But the key takeaways are the government shutdown is over. Longest shutdown in U.S. history, 43 days. Some people are slated to get back pay if they have it already. Next week, multiple deposits. I was shaking my hands up and down like I was doing the damn 6-7. Jeez. And also just again, like once that starts to trickle in, things will be in a place of normalcy. And there's still work to be done for the government. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And hopefully they can have a resolution passed well before January 30th that will last until the end of the fiscal year into September 30th, 2026. And hopefully they can, well before then, be able to do another resolution and another continual resolution and not have to fall into these pitfalls. But again, my advice for you, enjoy your holiday season. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, enjoy your Christmas season and New Year's, but make sure you budget properly. If you need to rebuild your emergency fund, make sure you have that into your spending and everything like that, because we got to do a little bit of rebuilding. Got to rebuild your house up. Do not spiral down. I'm putting down chunks on these credit cards and beefing back up my emergency fund. Got to get back to a sense of normalcy, because all this stuff had me uncomfortable for sure. I'm glad I had a buffer, but I like that peace of mind, and I've seen what peace of mind does not look like, and I like when you don't have it, and I've seen what peace of mind is when you do have it. Do not be ashamed to have a bunch of money sitting in the bank account, a high yield savings account. I'll tell you that much. And learn to prepare for these storms, because these storms will come, and nobody is immune to these storms. So, all right, y'all, that's all I got. Podcast episode 70. Again, it's just when things are tied up, when there's a lot of infighting and you got nothing to do with it, just for me, I just feel like I had a right to, I had my moments of just concern and thought and whatever. But no, I hope you enjoyed, listening. Whether if you were affected by the shutdown or not, or if you knew someone that was affected, go ahead and just think about this moment in time and prepare for what's next. And also at the same time, and I'll end with this, during the shutdown, I was asking a bunch of people, how are you doing? Don't be afraid to ask people how they doing. Now that the shutdown is over, make it a daily routine. Learn to reach out to people more. If you are religious, try to be more mindful and careful and attentive to persons. And just let's just help support each other out there. And then I'll give an additional thank you to a bunch of coworkers, current and former, that were sharing a bunch of links and information and just a bunch of different programs. A lot of local churches and food banks that were so instrumental in helping people survive during this tumultuous time. So, all All right, y'all. That's all I got. Not sure what the next episode is. But we gonna get back on it. So, thank y'all for listening. No Strings Podcast with Rel Simon. I am out. Peace. Thank you for listening to the No Strings Podcast with Rel Simon.